Start recording. Hi! Welcome to our Sunday Sync. As we all know, Adrienne will not be here today, and we're sending her all of our love, and she's taking some time to take care of herself, and we are fully supportive of that and want her to take the time she needs to heal. But we're all here, which is fantastic. I'm sure some of us are tired from the fireworks. I know Allie is. I know I am. I think Andrew probably is. But we're going to do our thing. Luca is too. 4th of July is over, but I can't guarantee the fireworks will stop because they've been going all month. Anyway, so without ado, do you have any other announcements, Andrew, before we jump into demos?
No, I don't think so.
Andrew was going to join us this week anyway, but we're very delighted that he is here now that it's just me for the next couple weeks. So thanks for coming, Andrew. So good to see your face.
Yeah. I'll definitely, I'll be kind of filling in for Adrienne for a little bit. So, I'll be in there mentoring with you and, working on issues and stuff. So
reviewing PRs and stuff. I didn't get tagged into any PRs this week. I know Andrew reviewed one. I reviewed one, yeah. One. So is there still one more that needs mentor review? I see Luca shaking his head.
Yes.
Okay.
Our PR needs one review.
Okay, cool. We'll just demo what you have locally then, and we'll make sure we get that one wrapped by the end of the day. So, who wants to start demos?
I could start with ours.
Okay, cool. Whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Cool. So this week, sorry, I have a slight sore throat right now, but anyway, yeah, this week, Shaji and I worked on issue number 10, which was as an item, I want my estimated next purchase date to be computed at the time my purchase is recorded in the database. And the accepted, the AC is just that, exactly. And then there was a script that was already provided. So we ended up just adding it into our list component because we figured that when an item is first added to the list, that next purchase date is already like the in the drop down for like 7, 14, or 30. So then we would only really want to compute the estimated next purchase date after the user has already checked like whether they've already purchased that item again. So we imported the function into our list component, and then in our handle change, actually, yeah, before going into that, maybe going into the function itself would be helpful. So this is the function. It does some sort of like weighted average based on your the number of purchases for that item, the latest interval, which was like the most recent days interval between your current date and then like the last purchase date, and then the last estimate, which was the next purchase interval. So then, we ended up just importing that function in, computed the days interval from today's date and the last purchase date of that item, and just converted it all to like days since it was stored as seconds in the database. And then we just input it into that calculate estimate function, and then used this variable and just re-updated the next purchase date. So then when you actually look at the app, you have coffee, next purchase in 10 days. And then when we click on it, it should recompute a new weighted average for the estimated next purchase. And that's it.
Can we see in the database where that's being stored?
Yeah. So this is the same item and coffee next purchase. It was 10 before, and then now it's 7. And then the number of purchases also increased.
This is amazing. And as always, excellent demo. You all are so good at your demos, and I'm so impressed, and I love it so much. Great work this week. That issue is like notoriously a really challenging one, and I feel like you all completed it with like ease, which is fantastic. That's so, so good. Anybody have any questions or thoughts about this issue? Brilliant work.
No, I think when I was watching the recording from last week, when you explained the purpose behind the app, it like finally kind of clicked. So that was really helpful.
Yes, we're gonna I'm gonna do a better video demo of like a previous cohorts app for future cohorts, because I was realizing oh, right, like when you say shopping list, you don't really think of this thing that we're building. So we do need to do a better job of explaining the product to people before they build it so they get the purpose. So thank you for pointing that out. And the feedback is amazing.
Yeah, I was
Anything
really
else on
impressed
this
with
one?
just how concise and clear, like you went straight to the point of the story and finished it. So it's
Andrew,
great.
this cohort's demos have been the best I've ever seen.
Wow.
You should know that they're superstars and they're amazing. So good. All right, on that note, next demo.
Yeah, no pressure.
Sure, I'll do it.
They are the best. No pressure. No pressure.
Okay. All right. So this week, Ellie and I worked on adding dynamic filtering functionality to the shopping list. So based on a single responsibility principle, we abstracted the search input into a new component called search, where the search is handled. However, we kept the state in the parent component, which is in the list file, which is input text, basically. So as user types, it filters through the list, and as we delete, the state is cleared, and there is every item showed on the page. We also added, conditionally added a clear button. So if the text is entered in the field, button is showed and you can clear the text. If not, then it's just a clear input field. So just to show the demo. So if we search for coffee, it kind of dynamically searches it, grapes and watermelon, and we also have the clear button rendered. As the text is entered, we can clear it up too. And that's it, I think.
Cool. Would you mind maybe add a couple more items that have similar names, so we can see like a water bottle or something like that, like things that have partial names, so we can see them both matching. I love that the default is eggs. There we go. Cool. Right on. And so it's ignoring
Andrew's
case
obsessed
as well.
with eggs, for anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, I love eggs. Awesome.
This is great. I'm looking forward to seeing the PR. So when it's ready, when you're ready for us, just tag us in Slack and we'll pop in there and take a look at it and hopefully get these all merged to master today. Or yes, master right now. But I wanted to tell you all, I see you, baby. I wanted to tell you all that I'm going to switch it to main as well. So I'll put more details in Slack about that, but that will be happening today, probably tonight.
Yeah, we made that switch for the Collab Lab website, and it was really simple and takes zero getting used to. It's just like it should have been that way all along.
Yes.
The code, when you ran through the code, it actually made a lot of sense, like where you were keeping state versus where you were kind of using it and stuff. So nice job on that.
I also love having these files that do the one thing that they're supposed to do. So great thinking there. It looks organized and it's clear and beautiful. So great work. Yay! All right. Well, 1 second. Benny, go find the girls. Go find the girls. Anyway, okay. So lots of lab kids. Let's do a learning module on communication. Y'all ready for this? This is like my favorite thing to talk about. Let me share my screen, desktop. Doesn't sound like he found those girls, I'll say. Present. Okay, can you all see the presentation? Thumbs up, great. We are going to talk about communication for developers today because communication is key. And I think that for a lot of us at Collab Lab who are coming from alternative backgrounds, not coming fresh out of college with computer science degrees and going into a developer job, we kind of have this superpower where for a lot of us, communication has already been like really deeply ingrained to our experiences in our life so far, whether we have like comms degrees or we've worked as servers or we've tutored or we've done, you know, all these other jobs where communication is like plays a really large role, right? So I think that when you're in the, go play, bud. When you're like out in the job search, this is something that can really set you aside as a junior developer. So lean on that communication and really refine that and present that as like a superpower that you have. Okay, so we're gonna go over some what, whys, and hows. What? Documentation is a brilliant way to demonstrate good communication and build a team and a product around documentation. Why? It allows you a way to kind of capture why you did something, why you built something the way that you built it. And when you're writing out this documentation, why you did these things, it can really help you learn and help solidify those concepts that you're applying to whatever you're building. It's a great tool for revisiting big decisions. So if you're on a team and you're exploring a new way you want to do something, you're probably going to look at a handful of different ways. And while you're exploring those, you want to be documenting why those things would and wouldn't be a good idea. So that in the future, when you're revisiting that again, because you probably will at some point, you'll remember why you didn't choose certain things or why you did choose certain things. And you're going to save yourself a lot of time having to replicate that research and work again. So document it. It's so useful for onboarding new team members. If you don't have to sit with a person and like share everything you know with them verbally, and you can hand them something that they can comb through and take their time getting to know better. I think we all know that if somebody like gives you something that you can revisit, it's a lot easier to feel comfortable with it and feel confident in knowing what you're doing because you have the resources that you need. So do the documentation for all the people who will be in the shoes that you were in when you started. It avoids institutional knowledge, meaning there shouldn't be one person or a handful of people on your team who know everything. Everybody should have access to all of that information. So by documenting everything that you know so that anybody can access it, you're empowering every member of your team to have ownership over your product and to make good decisions and to contribute. So do documentation for everybody, and it's going to help your team be more solid. It's going to help you move faster. It's going to help you make good decisions. And it's going to help everybody be on the same page and learn. It's such a good thing. Do it. Thank you. Okay, how on the documentation? Write for the person who knows the least. So if you have this piece of documentation and you know you have a brand new developer coming on the team or a junior developer, write for that person. Be detailed, be organized, link to things that need links. Like if you're referencing a certain concept or a certain technology, drop a hyperlink in there so that they can learn more. But optimize the documentation for the person who knows the most, the person who just needs a quick reference. Maybe you built something and you wrote the documentation, so you know it really well. But occasionally you need to refer back to how to do a certain process inside the tool or something. You need to like be sure you're leaning on good formatting so that it's easy for you to just glance at and know how to get to exactly where you need. Meaning, have a good table of contents, use good headings, use good bulleted lists, bold things, italic things when you need them. Put code in code blocks instead of just like typing it out. Make it easy to scan. And I linked to the React router documentation because I think it's a really great piece of documentation, but there's so many good ones out there. I would love for you all to like think through what documentation has been really helpful to you and easy for you to navigate and taught you a lot, and share it with us in Slack so we can kind of get an idea of what good documentation looks like. There's also a lot of really bad documentation, I'm sure, that we've all come across. So use that as inspiration as well as to what you don't want to do for people using your tools or people on your team. But documentation can be beautiful, can be helpful, can unite you as a team, and can help you learn yourself. So a great form of communication. Another what? Pull requests. We're all doing them, and you are all doing a brilliant job with them. The why. This gives reviewers context on your code. when you're working on a team, and even here at Collab Lab, a lot of times you'll tag people into your pull requests for a review, and they have no idea what you're building. They don't know what the acceptance criteria are. They don't know why you chose to do things the way you did. And if you can explain as much of that as possible in your pull request, then it helps them get on the same page as you a lot faster and makes their job a lot easier. It also is an opportunity to teach them things. So if you've learned something really helpful or fascinating, be sure to include that in your pull request. So again, your documentation is bringing everybody on your team up to the same page, and we're learning the same things, and we can, help each other make better decisions because we know what the thought process was and we know the whys behind what was built. A huge part of interviewing is talking through and walking through code that you've written. So having these robust PR descriptions can help you remember what you did and what you built. And it also shows whoever you're interviewing with that you care about something like this, that you care about informing your reviewers and the rest of your team about what you're building. So spend good time on those PRs. It's not just to get your PR reviewed and approved. It's a form of documentation. It's a form of solid communication on a development team. And it will really set you aside, because I know when I see a good pull request description, I'm like, wow, I love this, and I'm going to learn so much and read it. And I love you for doing it, whoever you are. It's you. I saw you do it.
Hey, Stacie, can I add one thing to that?
Sure, you can.
PR descriptions is literally how we do our coding exercises for engineering jobs at Zapier. So they'll submit their exercise, and we actually have talked about internally about not even looking at the code, just only looking at the PR description. That's how important that is. So just want to kind of emphasize that point.
I'm glad you did, because I didn't know that, and that's fascinating.
It wasn't the case when you did it, when you interviewed, but we're talking about it, yeah.
It's perfect. That's like solid. That will set you aside so good. Okay, so ways that you can really shine in these PRs are lots of screenshots and GIFs and videos. And Loom is a great tool for doing videos. Zappy is a great tool. I think I've shared both of those in Slack, but I'm happy to share them again. But there's a lot of times, like with code, right, that it's hard to like talk through what's happening without kind of tracking through it and being like you do in your demos, like, well, there's this piece over here, which leads to this piece here. And that's kind of hard to convey just in writing. So utilize these other mediums to give like a really robust look at what's happening. Links to resources and permalinks to the code that you're referencing. You want to send your reviewers right to where they need to go. So if you're teaching them something, link them to the documentation. If you're explaining a piece of code, give a permalink to that specific piece of code. And I actually want to show you how to do this because it's very important. Let's just pop into our code for an example. Okay, so if you're in here and you're looking at a file, probably just should have clicked on one of those. If you click here and you hit Shift and highlight these, you can generate a permalink here. And what that means is no matter how the code changes, this link is going to send it to the state that the code was in right here as we're looking at it highlighted in yellow. And that can be really helpful because in GitHub, your code's changing all the time. So link to the relevant code, very important. Okay, back to the presentation. Anything else on PRs that you want to add, Andrew? Oh, I should go over the last bullet. The self-review before asking others is another great form of communication and documentation in your pull requests. Because again, like when you're looking at the PR description, it's really hard to kind of like explain every line of code that you want to. So by leaving yourself a review before you ask anybody else to review it, you're able to line by line go in and explain things that maybe you think need an explanation or you want to ask a question on. So self-reviews, very powerful, very helpful.
Yeah, actually we'll add one thing. So
yeah,
it's a great point. And that self-review, it's totally okay if you implement something, it's totally okay if you're not 100% sure that it's correct. Like you could implement something and you leave a note in the PR, like alongside a line of code saying, hey, reviewer, like, do you think this is the right way to approach it? Do you have any suggestions here? I found this like a little confusing or something. That's totally valid. That's a really good form of communication or collaboration, just to be kind of that open about, if you aren't sure about something, just be kind of honest about it.
Totally. And you all have done like a brilliant job of completing the issues that you've been handed. But like for me at work, a lot of times my PRs will start as draft PRs and I'll go in and my first self-review is just questions, like a bunch of freaking questions through the code of like, how should I do this? I need advice here. Does this look right? And it's like, it helps, again, like just helps the people reviewing it get on board with you and know what you're working on and why you're making the decisions you're making, because there's like a history of the conversation that you're having right there connected with the code that you can get to forever. Like those comments will be there forever. So if you're ever like, I made that decision because somebody told me it was really good because of XYZ reason, you can always revisit it and remember why you made that decision. Amazing. Okay. Another what is comments in your code. And I want to preface this by saying different teams have different ideas about comments in code. I personally love them, especially if they're done right. And I think there's no harm in adding comments to code, but other teams might have other ideas. So have an open conversation with your team about it. Tell them why you think they're good if you think they're good, and change some people's minds because they're so valuable. But this gives your team context while they're actively tracing through the code that you've implemented. And the how of it is you really want to focus on the why this code was written rather than the what it does. Your code should be written in a way that somebody can read it and tell what it does, but the why might not quite be clear. And so I think that there's a really great example here of a why. So there's this piece of code that's written in the Reach UI, and it tells you here, if multiple is set to true, we need to make sure default index, blah, 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 but this will keep the component from blowing up. And it's the, but this will keep the component from blowing up that's important there. Like, why is this code here? Because it keeps the code from component from blowing up. That's important for you to know, because if you're assigned a task that messes with this code, you want to know the why of it. You want to know that you shouldn't change this piece, because if not, it's really going to mess stuff up. And so this is helpful. This is a really great comment in a code. Comment in code. That's hard to say. Another example that I like is somebody on my team wrote a feature where it like looked like some characters were typing out, right? Like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but it was like very human. So it like paused for a second and then typed a little more and then paused and then typed a little more. And so it's like, if you read the code, you could see that it was like stopping randomly. But why? Why is it stopping randomly? Like if I'm just looking at the code and I'm not looking at the UI, I'd be like, this is weird. Like, why would you build this into the feature? But right there in a comment, it's like, this is to give the UI a more human effect and like look like an actual human typing. I'm like, oh, this makes sense now. And I didn't have to like question it or go digging. It's right there in a comment. So comments are very helpful if you can explain the why behind something that's important and maybe a little ambiguous. Those are my thoughts on communication. Let's brainstorm real quick. What have your experiences with documentation and PR descriptions and code comments been like in your dev journey so far, at Collab Lab, on any side projects you've worked on? Just thoughts in general, how you might like to see this kind of stuff in your future role as a developer. Andrew, any thoughts or advice? Go, anybody wants to share. I'm gonna stop my screen share so we can see faces. Any thoughts? Like how has it been writing those PR descriptions at Collab Lab? I know we provide a template. Have you felt that that template's helpful? Do you feel like you have good PR descriptions that you'd like to show in an interview?
Yeah, I think, so in terms of codes, I think Ali has done a great job usually implementing some codes in our code base, because she would leave some comments or notes as to go back to that part and kind of evaluate for the next issues if that part works, or maybe just to improve accessibility for that part. So I think, yeah, it's been great in our code base. But for my personal experience, I haven't done much comments inside my projects. But I was always hesitant, and I was never sure what exactly is right to leave in the code base. So, but it makes more sense right now.
Good, I love to hear that. Yes, comments in code can be a touchy subject for people, but I think that if you can like articulate a why they're important, kind of like we just walked through about like, you know, the typing or the blowing up a component sort of thing. It's like, how can you argue with that? How can you argue that that's not a good use of your space in your files? I couldn't.
I think it's controversial just because, like, for the same reason sometimes pair programming is controversial. It's like controversial because it's what people have seen are bad examples of it. You know, you have, you know, let x equals 0 and the comment is set x to 0 or something. Like that's not helpful, right? So,
right.
But you know, again, pair programming too, like people have had bad experiences with it and then they write it off as something that's not worth doing. But you know, if you, I mean, I think your tips were great, you know, focusing on the why, because I know anytime that I implement something and I'm like, oh, that was kind of weird. And then I just leave myself a little note that, because I know, like, even though I wrote it 6 months from now, I'm going to come back and look at that and be like, what was I thinking? You know? So if I'm leaving myself a little breadcrumb there. So.
Yeah. And again, like when you go back to interview, if you've built an app, like even this app, and you need like a quick refresher and you're digging through each file, it's gonna be so much easier to navigate and remember what happened if you have those little breadcrumbs through there.
I think you were going to say something.
Oh, I'm just gonna add a quick.
Oh, sure.
Ali, do you wanna go?
I forget what I was gonna say
Oh, okay.
anyways.
I remember that for my personal projects, I use this extension for comments that helps with differentiating if it's an error. So that's how Luca said that Ali would write that, okay, this is something we have to come back to. So it would be, the comment would be in red if I add like a exclamation mark. So the comment would automatically turn red. So it's easy to navigate. Like you don't have to read through the entire file to know what the comment is. You know that, okay, let's say for example, there's like multiple components and I know that there's something that I have to go back to when I don't remember where the component is. I can just, you know, I don't have to look through. I would just know, okay, this is the red comment. That means that that's an error. Like, or that's something that I have to fix, as compared to if it's just a normal comment. So I think they have like 4 options. It's like green, blue, red, and something else. I can share it on the Slack. That has been really helpful for me for my personal projects. I know like when one of my, I saw it in one of the Collab lab as well. Somebody left, I think, a comment and it turned out red. So if it's like a comment and an exclamation mark, it turns red. Anyway, so that's been really helpful for me to do the comments in code. But I really like the PR description, how we do it here. The template is really helpful. If it's a bug, what are we doing? And if it's a UI change, just right now that Luca and Ali did a search bar. So there was a GIF over there showing what they did. So that was really helpful. So yeah.
Yes, actually, that reminds me of 2 really good points. One, that estimates.js file that's in the code now actually has some really great like comments in it explaining like what each of the parameters are supposed to be. I should have said that as an example. That's brilliant. 2, like I think I left this in somebody's PR a couple weeks ago, but I saw like a to-do comment, and those are like totally fine, you know, like especially if you're going to go right back to it like during that PR cycle to fix it. But another great form of documentation is being able to like detail bugs and feature requests. So when you come across things like things that you need to do or a little bug you found, go into GitHub issues. And I think we've even done this for this cohort already, and create like a really nice bug with some GIFs and videos and screenshots in there, because even if you don't want to fix that, if you leave it there, it's something good to bring up in an interview. If they're like, how would you fix this? And you're like, well, to start, I would create an issue so we can map out what exactly needs to be done so that we have something to go off of. And you can show an example of where you've done that. Because when we go through boot camp and when we're learning to go through tutorials, we focus so heavily on all the technical aspects of the job. But when it comes down to it and you're on a development team, this kind of communication and organization is going to be like the majority of your job, and actually writing code is going to be such a small portion of what you do. So if you can show that you're like a solid team player because you have good organizational and communication skills, you're going to be like so set up for success. Any other thoughts on like writing PRs or documentation or Anything? Comment code or commit messages? Andrew taught me how to write good commit messages, and now I'm addicted.
I was gonna say, I think like it's in my in the boot camp that I attended, we did have group projects, but we didn't have like great we didn't really have like a project board with individual issues very clearly lined out. And so as a result, it actually was really difficult to write pull requests because we couldn't like quite link them directly to a specific issue. So I feel like it's just really helpful to see that actually laid out with like, you know, there's 4 different acceptability criteria, makes the PR a lot more, I guess, like succinct and obvious, like what the feature you're building is, because the flow that I kind of learned was like, didn't realize that you would have to be naming like your branch as like the feature that you're working on. We always named it as like our first name, last name. So I think just like understanding that in an actual like development workflow is really helpful.
Yes, that is why we built Collab Lab.
That sounds like my group project too. At the end of our boot camp, it was a complete disaster. There was no like none of this lovely thing where the issues are all laid out. It was just complete chaos. And we didn't really have like the mentor we had was flighty. Like, so we had no idea what we were doing. We kept, you know, running into major GitHub like issues, and this has been phenomenal, and it's great to see how this actually like works. Like Lily said.
Yeah, I was gonna say like our issues would be like really general, like create a user profile and like no actual information inside of it, and then different teams would be like working on different things inside the same component, and it was like,
oh yeah, then you got merge conflicts everywhere because everybody's trying to work on the same thing and nobody's learned how to really create branches, and yeah, no, it was so this is wonderful.
I'm so glad to hear that. I mean, I'm not glad that that was your experience, but I'm glad that you're learning the things that you need to know now, because again, like this is why it's so hard for a lot of junior developers to find their first job, because you learn the technicalities, but people are looking at what you've done and being like, how is this person going to fit on our team? Like we need somebody who like can collaborate well and who has these skills, like with creating branches and organizing work. So focus on these things, write about them, tell people about them, learn how to talk about them, because they're going to be a superpower when it comes time to interview.
For sure, yeah. Just having hired a lot of developers, the less that I have to teach you out of the right out of the gate, the better, you know. So if you already know how to write a good PR and how to merge a branch and those kinds of like those things are kind of considered like basics, like kind of table stakes in a way. So if you already have that stuff down and they're like, well, you're not very far along technically, but you're growing fast, you're learning fast, but I don't have to spend a bunch of time remediating all this kind of other stuff, like how to use Git or something, you know, then it's make people more open to hiring you.
Totally. And like I was mentioning how PRs and documentation are a great opportunity to like teach your team stuff. That's like a really important skill too, that like people want on their team, is somebody who cares about helping the team grow and evolve, and somebody who can teach. So if you can write in a way that shows that you care about those kinds of things, that's also like a big bonus when you're going to join a team. Any other thoughts on communication as a developer? So important, like kind of one of the most important things.
For working on a team, for sure. We should add the commit message thing as one of the what's in your presentation.
You're so right. You're absolutely right. I love it. Okay. I have 16% battery. Wow, that's not good. I'm going to share my screen with you, and then I'm going to go plug in while we're going through this. The next thing we're going to do is go over the issues, and we've recently decided not to do breakout rooms anymore, but instead go over both of the weekly issues as a whole group. This is going to help us all be on the same page, and everybody will know what's being built in case there are any issues that kind of go hand in hand, where you might need to know more about what the other team's working on so that you don't recreate what they're doing. And it just helps us all be closer as a team, so I'm excited about it. I'm going to share my screen.
And it means you don't have that awkward thing where people come out of the breakout rooms and then have to say goodbye again before they leave the call, right? So.
Yes, and I'm like face muted just watching. Like, I'm excited to see everybody be awkward. Okay, so it looks like we still have that one where reviews in progress, which is correct. This one, I think got product owner approval, right?
Yeah.
But it's not merged yet? Okay, when you merge that, move this one over. And then as this one evolves through the process, can you all make sure that that one gets shifted over as well? Awesome. looks like the next groups are week 6, right?
Wow.
God, is that true? Oh my God. Okay. Okay, Shajia and Luca are on 1, and Lily and Ali are on 2. So it looks like, get out of my way, Zoom. Why you gotta be like that? I can't see. Okay, the next issues are, as a user, I want to delete items from my shopping list in the case that I made an error entering the item, or where I know I'll no longer be fighting that item again ever in the future. So you want to be able to delete an item. That's the issue. Number 12 is, as a user, I want to view a list of my shopping list, items in order of how soon I'm likely to need to buy each of them again. So ordering based on those intervals. Do either of these issues jump out to anybody? Do you want to claim any of them? If not, I'll just assign them in a random order.
If nobody minds, I'd like the delete issue, if Lily's okay with that.
Good. Okay. Let me move Zoom out of the way here. So I'm going to go ahead and assign this to Lily and Ali. Is that right? Yep. Okay. And then I'll move it over for you. Delete. And then this one will go to Shajia and Luca. Okay, so we will go over number 11 first. Andrew, do you mind going over this while I plug my laptop in?
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
going to open the issue.
Yeah, so, you can imagine that a user might make a typo and hit submit, or they may, there may be something that they bought once or they've been buying for a while, but they decided not to buy that thing anymore. Like say they switch which brand of yogurt they like to buy or something, whatever the thing is, whatever the reason, they may want to delete something from the lists. Yeah, the AC, basically you're able to do that. When the person hits delete, they should get some kind of prompt like confirming that they want to delete. So that's kind of just a basic principle in user kind of experience, is that if there's a destructive action, you kind of make the user confirm that they're going to do the thing. Because that data is going to go away. We're going to, as soon as they delete it, all the records that are associated with it should all be deleted out of the database. So let's see, user is able to, it doesn't really specify where they would do that. So you could actually delete from the list view, or have we implemented the item view yet? Maybe not. So, okay, it's just in the list view then. So
I don't think
we need to add some kind of UI in there, a little button or something that allows them to delete. So yeah, is that clear? Is there anything else? Like, would it be helpful to see a demo of that or anything in a previous app? So pretty clear.
Cool. Okay. If there's no questions on that one, good luck. We're here for you if you do have questions. We will go over number 12 real quick. Andrew, I'll let you go over this one too. It's a little
Okay.
loud.
All right, sure. Yeah, this one. So we've implemented the estimates, right? So now the app can kind of learn your shopping habits, and it'll know that you buy toothpaste every 6 weeks, but you buy eggs every week, or whatever the thing is, right? So now what we want to do is have that reflected in the list itself. So the idea is that there are sort of 4 states. So we have soon, kind of soon, and not soon, but we're going to have sort of a 4th state, which is inactive. And these are all states that can be sort of calculated on the front end. As you're rendering, you can just look at the how long is it until the next purchase, and then kind of somehow indicate this in the list view. So what we want to do is sort of visually make each of those categories distinct. So something that's soon maybe it's a different background color, or there's some like indicator that is the soon category, that state of things, all the way through to inactive. Within each of those sort of categories, we want the items to be sorted by the number of days until the next purchase. So there might be 6 things that are all soon, but the thing that's the soonest, I guess, would be at the top of the list, right? and if you have two things that have the same number of days until they're going to be purchased, then you would just sort those alphabetically. So yeah, so the different states should be visually distinct. And then the thing about, I mentioned background color as a way to do that. That works for sighted users, but it's not going to work well for a screen reader, as an example. So, we'll need to kind of figure out some way that when a screen reader goes through the list, that it can actually kind of announce to the user that the, which state it's in. Does that all make sense? Was that this? I feel like this one might help to actually see an app kind of working that has the states implemented or something.
Sure. Do you know if there's one up that's seeded and stuff?
Oh, that's actually another really good point. I can see if
this one too, so in some of the previous weeks, I know that y'all have found that one pair will wrap theirs up really fast because it was maybe a little bit smaller, and then you felt like you had leftover time. So this one seems like a little heavier than the delete one. So I would encourage you to work as a full team if you do wrap that delete one up quick and you have extra time to spare to, hop on a pair programming session with the other pair and see if you can work together to make progress. Don't be afraid to work as a whole team. Okay, I'll stop my screen share. Are you finding one, Andrew?
No, I was going to go to TCL 7. I don't have a token that has any items in it already. So it's actually might be a good kind of a good example though, where I will share my screen here in a second once I get a couple things set up. Just as an example of how to, you're going to need to kind of go into the database and manipulate some stuff to test this.
Yes, and you might not have questions right now. This is one of those ones that I feel like you really have to look at and sit with before you can kind of understand what questions you would even have. So I encourage you who are working on it to just take some time to read over it and really visualize how you think it will work. And then we're totally here if you have questions or want to do a pairing session with us to kind of explain it further.
Okay, so this is TCL 7's finished app. We're gonna add eggs, obviously. I guess I need, let's see, a fourth thing. Let's see. Oh, I don't know. Just butter. Oh, we can test their filtering too. Okay, so, all right, so we have the different things. I'm going to actually put this into kind of mobile mode. These buttons are kind of weird, Stacie. But anyway, do you know if they got to the setting the different states in order?
They have gotten to it. It looks like it's bugging out.
Yeah, it looks a little buggy. It's all right. So I'm just going to go in here and what's my token? Brian Nan Rye, of course. All right, there's Brian Nan Rye. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this guy. So I'm going to say, I'll set it to some date in the future. Come back here and, oh, this isn't a good example. It's not really sorting well by the, oops. Maybe I need to pull up TCL 6 maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure if theirs is still active.
Okay.
But
well,
anyway.
Yeah, anyway, the kind of the important part is that you can go in and just, manipulate these dates to get your items into different states. And then it should be reflected in the list somehow. So yeah, whether that's a background color, maybe you might need to use an ARIA label or something like that to work with the screen readers. But yeah, you create a few items, go in here, set something to be like, it's not going to happen for a long time, to kind of get it into that inactive state, that kind of thing. So, so yeah, does that all make sense?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. So I think you mentioned, but I will clarify this. So, for example, if we have 3 or 4 items that have like soon status, so we want to purchase in a week, so should we also sort that 4 items if they have like same purchase dates, like alphabetically or any other way? Probably.
Yeah. So first you'll sort by the number of days, and then if 2 things or if multiple things have the same day, you would sort those alphabetically.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep. Good question.
So really, like, you could just sort by the number of days. Like, that's really just it, right? Like the number of days, and then alphabetically. Oh, you still have to look at the categories because you need them alphabetically within those categories. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, and it's I've seen, it's really possible to over-engineer this one. So I've seen past cohorts, they'll kind of scan through all the items and put them into groups and then do this. You can really probably just do this as you're mapping through the items and displaying them, right? Just add the state, like which category they're in, as a class name or something like that on the item. You don't need to go through a bunch of like do multiple queries or anything like that.
Oh, I love that. Y'all have done that somewhere in the app already, where you've like set a class name based on state, I think, right? I feel like I've seen that. That's a good idea. I love it.
Yeah, I did that in the item. Yeah, inside item.js. Class names are set dynamically to change whether or not it's crossed out.
I love it. So good. Okay, so we're all set up on next week issues. We're going to wrap up the issues that we still have active today and make sure they get merged into what is master right now, but will be main very soon. And then we'll get to another week of pairing. Any questions or thoughts before we wrap this call up and get on with building cool things?
Was it helpful to hear what the other pair is working on too? Is that, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I liked it.
It was nice to get the comparison of the 2 to know that like we might get through ours pretty quickly. And then, obviously we'll be then happy to help with the other one if they need it. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, on that note, amazing work this week. Next week, we will do demos and retros like we do every 2 weeks. So be thinking about over the last week and over this coming week, appreciations that you have, things that went well, and things that we can improve so that when it comes time to retro, we're ready to go and have some really great insights to share. With that, I will bid you all adieu until we see you next week, or if you want to pair in the meantime, let us know. We're here for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you.